I, 27F, am unsure how to navigate my relationship with my Mil, 60F, after how she treated me at the wedding. Last week, my 27F, now husband, 30M, and I married. Yay! Since the wedding was in his hometown, we stayed with his parents in their home for the week. We live far away, and appreciated having a home base near the venue to finish last-minute details. We thought staying with his parents, who are usually kind and warm, would be relaxing and easy. Narrator. It was not relaxing nor easy. My Mil, 60F, apparently deeply burdened by the stress of hosting us and his sister for the wedding, acted out in ways that gave me long-standing hurt. I don't know how to navigate the relationship with her moving forward. It started out small. She repeatedly referred to anything inconvenient related to the wedding as OP's project, but husband's responsibility. For example, we have to move OP's candles to the venue, which will be a huge hassle, was a common refrain. We offered to move the candles ourselves at least a dozen times and were denied. When my family accidentally something at the hotel, and we had to go get it, that's yet another thing, husband will have to take care of. As context. Husband was allowed to drive their extra car, but I was not, though I did accompany him on every errand. Then it got more pointed. When I was overwhelmed with wedding stress, my husband insisted on driving me into town for an exercise class to decompress. I also offered to Uber or take transit, but husband insisted, and also wanted to get out of the house for a bit. When Mil found out, she cornered me to ask, "Are you sure it's a good idea for you to make husband drive you to this class?" and snidely added that she would take care of everything, as usual, while you're gone. I'm not sure what she was referring to, since everything wedding related was done by then. Frustratingly, nobody seemed to mind when my husband went on his run, or when my Mil or Sil did their own exercise class. It was only my thing that was an issue. In another instance, she remarked that I would be thinner if I ate more like she and husband do. She doesn't know that I previously struggled with an ED, but she does know many women in my family do. I mentioned how difficult it was to finish the wedding table numbers, and joked, who would have thought the most difficult part of the wedding was something so small, and she corrected me to note, actually, moving your candles was the most difficult part. While my husband corrected her where he could, she mostly waited until she and I were alone to make these comments. It got to the point where he refused to let me be alone with her in the room out of concern she would continue. A few days before the wedding, he sat her down and told her to lay off. He said that while this is his childhood home and he feels comfortable expressing his stress, I don't, and choose to mask it, and to stop criticizing me. She seemed genuinely shocked that I was under stress, to which he said, if I seem under pressure, OP is under 10x more. She's planned most of this wedding, and you of all people should know that the bride gets the unfair burden of expectations and scrutiny. She said, wow, I guess I should be treating her with more compassion and less criticism, then. I will going forward. Narrator. She did not. On the wedding day itself, she didn't come to the getting ready suite with my family and bridesmaids. She stayed at home because laundry needed to be done. She arrived in a dress that she had designed and handmade in secret that could very generously be called champagne. During family portraits, I asked to move to a more hidden location, as guests were arriving 45 minutes early, and could see us. She said that I could hardly be mad that guests were trying to beat traffic, and visibly pouted about having to move. She then glared daggers at me the rest of the time we were in the bridal suite, minutes before the processional. The day after the wedding, I was disappointed to learn that my photographer had told GMIL to stop taking photos by saying, "The bride asked me to tell you to stop," which isn't true. GMIL told us this in front of Mil, and I corrected the record and said, "I hate to think that you thought I was making those demands of you right before the wedding went. That's not the case." Mil, did she say something like that to you? Mil paused, pursed her lips, and only said, she would have been better off telling your generation not to take photos. Telling the grandmother of the groom not to? That's just rude. She then changed the subject to chat with Phil about what they needed from the grocery store. We're now back in our city, and husband wants to talk to her to address it, but we disagree on how he should do so. I want to feel defended, he wants to be strategic. I want him to say something like, "The way you spoke to Op was unacceptable," and "Though we know you didn't mean it, hurtful. You said you were going to be more compassionate and less critical, and you weren't. What happened?" But he thinks that doing so will only damage our relationship with her. He says Mil, who expresses love in acts of service, probably thinks she knocked it out of the park for the wedding. She moved the candles, she did laundry every day, she cooked us dinners, and when she saw me wearing my husband's sweatpants, even bought me a pair because I liked them so much. But these didn't feel like love, they felt stressful. I could have moved the candles myself without the guilt trip. Having to drop everything wedding planning related to eat dinner at 5, or receiving the silent treatment if we missed it, spiked my anxiety. We were 10 minutes late to one dinner, and she made sure to point out several times that the meat was 10 minutes overcooked. I didn't need my laundry done nor ask. I digress. He thinks that telling her she hurt me will only make her shut down, and that the next Christmas or Thanksgiving or visit will just be strained and awkward. His suggestion is to chip away at her unflinching walls, but doesn't know what that looks like. He's willing to confront her, but wants me to decide what I want the relationship to look like, so he can tailor how he does so. I don't really know what I want the relationship to look like. All I know is that I felt deeply alienated by someone who is purportedly welcoming me to her family. I don't want to spend another Thanksgiving with someone who treats me like an outsider, and I'm not sure why I'm the one who has to decide what the relationship looks like, when she's the one who nuked it. TLDR, Mill was passive-aggressive and mean to me during what was supposed to be a very joyful period. Husband is willing to confront her, but doesn't know how to do so to best maintain the relationship. I don't know how to not feel hurt and alienated, nor if I want a relationship after being treated that way.
Do you think she wants to change? If this is a pattern and if she likes to be both a martyr and a bully, nothing you say can change that knowledge. What will your husband do to protect you, his wife? It is up to him to establish clear boundaries and actions that will occur when these are wise. Stay with the in-laws when she makes it so deeply uncomfortable. The first time she says anything negative or passive-aggressive, your husband needs to step forward and call it out every single time and have stock phrases and actions for her. Mom, you seem tired. Clearly it's too much for us to stay with you. Next time we'll stay at, pick a hotel, and we can have a happier you out of the house. Okay Mom, we're going for a coffee. Why don't you have a rest and hopefully we can have a better time. Mom, I'm going to make dinner reservations for tonight. Do you want to join us? He needs to step forward each time and not let her actions go.
Saying, "The way you spoke to me is unacceptable," is an accusation and attack. Saying, "I felt upset and disrespected when XYZ was said," is a factual description of something that happened and how you felt. Above all, it's not an you attack. People get defensive, and either they will shut down or adopt the "best defense is a good offense" approach, and now you have and you want your Mill to understand how you felt and why, but you also need to listen to her and understand her. She should have the opportunity to be heard and give her side of things if she wants to, and not giving the opportunity is going to create friction. Use I phrases. Saying, "I felt like XYZ when ABC happened," gets across that it was an unacceptable situation. You want to be able to understand each other before you can find a solution that makes both of you happy.
Does she know that meat can be left out the oven the rest?
Lol, don't get me started. The meat was medium 10 minutes ago, but the vegetables were warm 10 minutes ago. Lady, was it all in the oven or not?
Please. I need to know about these hard-to-move candles. Exactly what made them such a problem? It seems such a weird thing to get worked up about.
There were several boxes of them and they were pretty heavy, and the venue would only allow them to be brought day of. So they didn't want me to do it since I had a long day of getting ready. They didn't want husband to do it because he's the groom, and didn't want any of the groomsmen or other able-bodied friends to do it because reasons. IDK, they took about 30 minutes all told to load into the car and deliver to the venue, where other people set them up. I am really not sure what the big deal was. My husband pointed out that while their role in his wedding was small compared to ours, the hosting and prep and movements was still probably the most stress they've dealt with in 15 years.
I think she's scraping the bottom of the barrel to dig up evidence that you are abusing her poor baby. See hotels in your future if you go to visit them again.
Congratulations on your suggest you park this for a bit. Tell your husband that you're hurt and upset and you want a cooling off period for a week or so to let feelings simmer down. In that time you don't want to hear about her, or from I'd be inclined to say, I don't want to be in the middle of your relationship with your mother. She seemed to be extremely resentful of me already and I don't want to make that worse. She's your mother, I'm your wife. You need to decide how to play this. My boundaries are, e.g., I will be civil and pleasant to her if she is civil and pleasant to me, but in future, if she starts on passive-aggressive unpleasantness, I'll leave the I'm not going to coax her or play strategic games. If she doesn't want to welcome me to the family, that's her decision, and her behavior too.
Yes, I know these subs have a tendency to say, you don't have a meal problem, you have a husband problem, so I wanted to make extra clear that my husband is trying really hard to be on my team. I do want a relationship with her, but obviously not one that looks like this. I want to feel respected, if not liked or loved. She has previously asked me to call her Mum, and been really warm toward me, so the unkindness is new and surprising. But I'm frustrated that I'm spending the emotional labor to figure out what that looks like, and not her, who made the relationship a problem.
This lady will continue to martyr herself if you so much as use too much hand soap or some such trivial nonsense when you visit. Summoning y'all to dinner at 5 p.m. with a heavy-handed guilt trip? I wouldn't even bother, she likely wants a reaction. If your husband confronts her, you'll be turning her baby boy against her. Stay in a hotel or with other family next time and save yourself the stress.
Greater than it got to the point where he refused to let me be alone with her in the room out of concern she would continue. First of all, kudos to your husband for running interference. Clearly he knows what she's like. My own opinion is that he probably knows how to handle her better than you do, so you might want to let him plot. The own experience with this personality type is that they are never, ever wrong, and himself could come down with angels around him to give her a lecture, and she'd fold her arms and quietly decide that either that wasn't the real or he's not as smart as they said I'd let things calm down and not talk to her except when you have to, for at least a few months. A lot of your feelings are surprise. You thought she was a nice lady. Now you know what she's really like. When the holidays come, practice your grey rock method and don't let her get you alone, ever again.
This is the best answer. Your husband is actually very wise. If you immediately put her on the defensive, your relationship will be ruined forever. Guaranteed. Weddings stress everyone out. It's crazy but true. It is not necessarily a prediction of future actions. Obviously you'd be in. You're right, technically, to say, I'm done with you. But it might be that this misbehavior is never ever repeated. It's possible that from now on she is an angel. Are you okay forgiving her this if that was the case? You have to look into your soul. If so, please let your husband deal with it his way. You'll know you always took the high road, and if she continues nitpicking you, your husband will be even more behind you. Sounds like he already is, which is amazing.
Imagine being a hostess and not being able to put a lid on something for 10 minutes. It's not a souffle.
I agree with other posters. This woman has a personality problem that extends far beyond this situation or her relationship with you. In addition to being plain mean, she clearly sees herself as the main character in everyone else's life. She does not want to and will not change, except maybe in small ways, in order to get what she wants. Your best bet is to keep your distance so that her problems don't become yours.
Stuff like this literally why groomsmen exist. What a bizarre and thing to obsess over.
So, years ago something similar happened to us and we learned to remove all power and things were stay with them, rent a house or hotel for the week. It's far borrow a car, rent one. Don't expect home-cooked meals, etc. My mill would basically try anything to appear to be the one doing all the work and then would tell everyone about it. So we basically put her on an information diet and stoked including her. Slowly things changed and she learned.
I definitely think you should back off and let your husband handle his mother. She is his problem to deal with. However, you need to make it very clear to him everything she did that was inappropriate and mean. Wearing a champagne-colored dress to the wedding? That's some act of service. Figure out what boundaries you want in the future and make those clear to your husband. The chance of her changing into a nicer person is slim, so you should preemptively protect yourself. Did she ever behave like this prior to the engagement, wedding? Your husband's explanations sound like someone raised by a boat rocker. She may have hid her true nature until she knew for sure she was stuck with you.
First off, make sure your photographer makes that champagne dress light taupe. It's easy and cheap, and will help you enjoy your photos. Let your husband handle her, but make it clear to him that y'all are never sharing a roof with her again. She can't behave even with him in the room, so she has destined herself to a lifetime of Olive Garden visits. Tell him if she behaves for 5 years of Olive Garden visits, you will consider a holiday meal with her if he never leaves her side. A lot of women would never speak to a mill who connived to wear white to their wedding, so husband needs to be grateful you will see her at all.
I was thinking about the boundaries on this post too. In addition to backing off, you have agency in this. If someone complains 10 times about driving candles to a church, or whatever, you don't have to ask them whether they want you to do it. They are telling you, albeit in a passive dysfunctional way, that they either 1, don't want to do it, or 2, will hold the task over your head forever. So don't let them. The second time she said something, because the first time is okay to me, gives me the chance to feel them out. Are they really put out by the task, despite their protests to the contrary, or are they forever the martyr? I would have said something like, okay, we'll get those taken then plastered a strained smile through her protests, not arguing back, then just take them. Or take them yourself and tell her. After. You don't need permission to handle your own belongings. Another example is them not allowing you to drive the car. Your husband should have said, no, that's not going to work for us. She needs to be able to drive, and rented a second car. Which really is what you could have conveyed to your husband. It doesn't work for you, then let him convey that to Mill, if need be. In the above 2 examples, it is crystal clear that Mil's motivation is *** control. She ** had envisioned your final wedding plans going according to her tastes and was willing to puppet these situations so that it worked out in her favor. She will forever be a martyr. The last one is, your husband wouldn't let you be alone with her any longer. That's really sweet, but what about you? Why would it take your husband for you to realize she's being a and you can take yourself out of that situation, being alone with her? This is your husband's fam and certainly some responsibilities default to him. But the agency you've given up in this situation absolutely adds to the resentment and hurt. She's overstepping your boundaries, and in some of these situations, you're overstepping your own boundaries too. Don't do that anymore. It's not rude to say no or to enforce a you do not need permission, via Mil's concessions or via husband stepping in, to enforce your boundaries. It would not have been rude of you to drop off your own candles or rent a second vehicle. Let her protest. Her feelings can only dictate her own behavior. Her feelings dictating your behavior is on you, and is obviously on her too. It's about her need to control and impose herself. I hope you'll address this. Feeling bad for saying no is so common, especially for women who are often socialized since childhood to be ultra-accommodating. The Mill sounds codependent. Check the sub. Insisting on martyring herself to do things no one asked her to do, then complaining loudly that no one appreciates her doing things no one asked her to do, is pretty classic. Controlling this situation, make no mistake, her goal was for you to star as the crybaby villain and her as the wronged martyr. Is also a classic example. As is her being ********* too involved and puppeting a situation that does not require her input. A good general way to deal is to take people at face value. Oh, the candles are too much. We'll take them instead of spending time considering her angle, motivation, etc. It takes the wind right out of their complaint sails, but you gotta be neutral and direct. No, fine, you we'll take our own candles. That's like a martyr she'll be high on for decades. Remember when Op yelled at me about candles 20 years ago? Wah, don't do galore.